Well, we're at number 10 in our foundational anchors here at Simple Hoops. I'm Randy Brown, Coach RB, and we're going to wrap this up with our 10th and final anchor, learning how to foul less. Now, this may be a foreign concept to you, but it's going to make a ton of sense by the time we get to the end of this session. We appreciate your support, certainly always have with Coach RB. We have always had a really, really good group of serious basketball coaches. And those are the guys that I love to be able to work with and chart their success as they use hopefully some of the tools that I talk about in my mentoring and in my teaching as a basketball coach. So number 10, learn how to foul less. I have a list here that I'm going to actually use as a reference because there are some very specific things that I want you to learn and understand from this. When we say teach your players how to foul less, listen very carefully to how that's stated. Not talk about it a lot. And again, this is, if you remember our communication anchor and the rule of sticky, you can talk about it, you can emphasize it, and you can make it a non-negotiable. You cannot tell players over and over and over, hey, quit fouling, we're fouling too much. Fouling and not fouling is a skill that must be taught. It is not in a player's DNA to not foul unless said player or players or team has been taught how to position themselves properly, how to keep hands at home, how to play with your feet and negate all that reaching. It's a skill, just like dribbling or shooting. And so you have to teach it in accordance to that. And it's like communication. You can't keep telling your team, we're not talking. You guys, how do you play without talking? Teach them how to talk specifically. Okay, same thing for how to foul less. All right, a couple things here. It is very important that if you're going to do really your due diligence to this, that you determine where the fouls are coming from and in what situation. Really important. Was it, let's say, in some penetration by the opponent? Was it trying to block shots? Was it late rotation? In other words, we weren't in the right place to start with, so our rotation was late. And we end up almost getting there, but we commit to foul. Did we foul a shooter? Was it because of lack of vision the play started and we didn't react right away? We were too close to the player that we were guarding to get the help position. Too closely guarding the ball. Too physical in the post. These are all examples. Okay, and you need to chart what type of situation it was. Where did the foul come from? Remember, the foul sometimes is the end result. So if you tell the player, listen, you committed the foul before you ever got over there and rotated over and tried to keep the ball from going in the goal. What do you mean, coach? Well, instead of having 1 foot in the lane on the weak side, you were 2 feet outside the lane. And by the time the play started, you had too far to go to rotate. That's not what we do in our shell drill, right? We don't. We're 1 foot in the paint. Well, so he committed the foul before the play even started, actually. And so you need to determine that because you've got to go to the practice floor and resolve some of these issues with fouling. All right, next. Who is committing what kind of foul? So what's the situation? Who committed the foul? Now, you need to know that, and you need to chart that, because if you've got players that are committing a lot of fouls, they're really going to need to be taught all of this. Other players get by with minimal fouls. Now, they still need to learn. But you need to know who's committing most of those fouls. So who's committing which kind of foul, how many, and each player has what I call a foul profile. What is it? Is it a guy always trying to block shots? Okay, and that's a whole nother topic. But almost all fouls around the basket are because a player is either trying to get a charge, trying to take a charge, or trying to block a shot. Without a doubt, the majority of the fouls committed at the basket are those where we're trying to block the shot. I don't know about you, and I don't know how you run your defense, but blocking a shot was never in my philosophy for defense. If you're going to make a shot, it's going to be over our defense. Over. And that's just a philosophy. And I was a defensive coach, continue to be a defensive coach. The idea is for them to shoot over us to make the basket, not to try to block shots. There are rarely a shot blocker who can do it without fouling in high school. It's going to be an automatic foul. That goes into a kind of another pet peeve of mine. All right, where on the foul are the fouls being committed? Because that could shed some light too on a player's foul profile. So here's what you need to do as a coach. Once you've gathered that information, you need to go to the practice floor and replicate these situations where fouls are being committed. Don't talk to them about foul less. Get to the floor. And in practice, add a point for every foul to point totals. Instead of, well, it's a foul, just take it out. Make fouling a big deal. Make lack of fouling a even bigger deal. Hey, guys, that was a great possession. We were physical. Guys were reacting to both player and ball movement. We didn't commit a foul, but yet we were physical. That's a great job. That's what we want to do, and we made him shoot over us at the end of the possession. Tim Floyd, the NBA coach and very successful college coach, I asked one time when I was a head coach at Stetson, because we had a problem in our league of scoring enough baskets. We could not score enough baskets to win games. And so I asked him, how do we shoot more free throws than the opponent? How do we widen the gap between how many we shot and how many they shot? And he said, foul less. Very wise man. He said foul less, and that will help you increase that gap between what we shoot and what they shoot. Brilliant. And so the next year we spent a huge amount of time and made it a non-negotiable. And boy, we cleaned fouling up like you can't believe. Okay? So that was great advice. All right, we must teach them how not to foul. It's not enough just to be in the right position. When there's penetration, we have to teach players how not to foul. We know how to foul, so usually it's the opposite of that. The other thing about, hey, we aren't shot blockers. We make people shoot over us. The same rule goes, hey, we're not out here to steal the ball. That's reaching is another huge culprit in fouling. We're not in the game to steal it. We're not in the game to block it. We're in the game fundamentally to keep the ball in front of us, and when they shoot over us. That's as simple as I can get. And protect the goal at all costs. So teach them how not to foul like we teach every other phase of the game. All right, here's your coaching challenge. Take 3 games from last year and chart fouls. Who, what kind, where on the floor, and really what was the situation surrounding that foul. And then create practice situations and film for teaching your players how not to foul in that situation, and the result will be phenomenal. And again, this is part of your DNA as a coach. This is part of your culture. We don't foul. Certainly we're going to foul. But only necessary fouls if there is such a thing, and players are just going to foul. There's going to be situations where they're just going to foul. But if we get really good at not fouling, all of a sudden our opponent is shooting 8 or 9 or 6, possibly 10 a game versus 17, 18, 19, or 20 a game. Okay, those are buckets. That's 10, 11 points. Those are buckets. Those are threes that we're taking off the board for them. And then the flip side of that, which I haven't talked about, but I think we understand that the flip side of that is once you learn how not to foul, you also become very knowledgeable about what fouling and not fouling is, and offensively you get really good at getting fouled because you understand what you're trying to do defensively, so you do those things on offense to get fouled. You shoot a few more, they shoot a few less. That gap can win you a lot of basketball games. Okay, this is it. Number 10, foundational anchors, and this has been awesome. Tremendous. I think we're probably into about an hour and 10, maybe hour and 15 through 10 of our anchors. And I want you to really, really go back through them and listen to them and take notes. Now, you might find some anchors really not that important to you personally because it doesn't fit into your DNA. That's great. But I know some of them will. And for a lot of you coaches that follow Coach RB, I know a majority of them will. You're either already doing it or you're going to pick up on a lot of them. And you know me, and you know what I'm all about, and you hear me talk about the same things all the time. Okay? I'm very consistent in the things I value in the game, and I encourage you to also. Now, we're wrapping this up. I'm now going to move on to another topic. So the next topic, let's say, could be rebounding. And I'm going to spend 3, 4, maybe 5 videos on rebounding. And then I'm going to go to the next topic. So when I decided to do Simple Hoops, I just didn't want to do one quick video on a part of the game. I wanted to pick topics and then do multiple videos within that topic. If you want to go back and review how not to foul, you could grab this module. At some point, I will even elaborate on this and maybe even show you some tape. But we're going to deal with topics, and I would ask you to send me an email, rb@coachrb.com, rb@coachrb.com, and request a topic that you'd like to have covered. And we'll see if we can work it into our overall outline. But hey, thanks so much for being here. If you have yet to subscribe and like the video, please do that. It really helps on this end. And we got a big group following Simple Hoops, and we really, really appreciate you being a part of that. So thanks so much, and we will talk to you real soon with our next video topic, and I'm looking forward to it. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.